Someday Angeline by Louis Sachar. 3. A Goat with One Head. At lunch, she sat by herself on the grass against the tree and ate a peanut butter and jello sandwich. She preferred jello to jelly with her peanut butter. There was a boy also sitting alone, not too far away from her. She watched him try to open his bag of potato chips. He pulled and pushed the bag in every direction until she was sure that all the chips inside had been smashed to smithereens. Still, the bag would not open. She took another bite out of her peanut butter and jello and tried to keep from laughing. Besides crying too much, Angeline also thought she laughed too much. It wasn't that she laughed a lot, just at all the wrong times. She thought watching the boy try to open his potato chip bag was the funniest thing she had ever seen, but she didn't want to laugh at him. He bit the bag with his teeth and jerked at it with both hands. Nothing. Still, holding it in his teeth and both hands, he vigorously shook his head. She gulped down some milk with her eyes fixed on the boy. Suddenly the bag burst open and Angeline instantly burst out laughing, causing milk to squirt out of her mouth. The potato chips exploded out of the bag and onto the ground. Angeline couldn't stop laughing and she wiped the milk off her face with a napkin. The boy stared at her. He still held part of the torn bag in one hand, part in the other hand, and part in his teeth. The potato chips were in little crumbs all around him. Angeline did her best to stop laughing. She only managed to halt every other laugh. She hoped the boy wouldn't hit her. She didn't want to cry again, but to her surprise, the boy also laughed. It was a stupid, awkward laugh. He sounded like an embarrassed hyena. Then, seeing that Angeline was still watching him, he pretended to eat his empty bag of potato chips. Not the potato chips, but the bag himself, as if that was all he wanted in the first place. Angeline thought it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. Then the boy took his sandwich out of its plastic bag, threw it on the ground, and pretended to eat the plastic bag. Angeline couldn't stop laughing. She watched as he poured the rest of the milk into the dirt and pretended to eat the empty milk carton. She was hysterical. At that moment, there rolled past her a tennis ball, which someone had hit all the way from the baseball field. It stopped next to the boy, who was so funny. "Hey, Goon, get the ball," someone called. The boy looked at the ball. "Get the ball, Goon!" He didn't get it. Philip Corbin, one of the kids in Angeline's class, walked toward the boy. He was obviously disgusted they had to walk so far and waste the recess when he could be playing baseball. "Come on, Goon, throw me the ball," he said. "I'm eating," said the boy, and he pretended to eat his milk carton again. Angeline laughed. Philip gave her a dirty look as he walked past her and got the ball himself. "What a goon," he muttered, and started back toward the baseball field. "Maybe if you didn't call him Goon, he would have gotten the ball for you," said Angeline. "Shut up, freak," said Philip. He threw the ball back toward the field and ran after it. "I hope you strike out," said Angeline when she knew Philip couldn't hear her. She didn't know much about baseball, except that the one time she got to play, she struck out. She finished her peanut butter and jello sandwich and washed it down with some milk. She still had some cookies. For the sake of his joke, the boy had thrown away his whole lunch. Angeline thought he looked hungry. "Do you feel like a cookie?" she offered. She took a sip of milk. "I don't know," said the boy. "How does a cookie feel?" laughed Angeline. This time, milk not only squirted out of her mouth, it also squirted out of her nose. She thought it was the funniest joke she had ever heard. The boy was shocked. He always told jokes about 100 a day, but he couldn't remember the last time anyone had laughed at one. Angeline couldn't stop laughing. She didn't want lunch to ever end. "What time does your watch say?" she asked him. She hoped there was a lot of time left. The boy put his watch next to his ear. "My watch doesn't say anything," he replied. "It can't talk." Angeline laughed again. She thought it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. Again, the boy was amazed. He didn't know what to think. Nobody ever laughed at his jokes. That wasn't why he told them. He didn't know why he told them. But it couldn't have been to make people laugh, because nobody ever did. Sometimes someone might say, "Ha ha, very funny, Goon." But that was the closest anyone ever came to laughing. Mostly they just ignored him. "I think you are so funny," said Angeline when she stopped laughing. The boy shrugged. "You're the only one," he said. He was really glad Angeline liked his jokes. It was just too bad that he had dumped all his lunch on the ground and he didn't even get the cookie that Angeline had offered. He was starving. "What's your name?" said Angeline. "Goon," said the boy. And then he laughed stupidly. "See, my real name is Gary Boone," he explained. "So for a joke, I combined my two names and I call myself Goon." He He laughed again. Angeline didn't laugh. She didn't like being called Freak and was surprised to hear he had made up the name Goon himself. Do you like it when people call you Goon? She asked. Gary shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. Well, I'll just call you Gary, said Angeline. I'm Angeline. Oh, you're the real smart kid, aren't you? Said Gary. Angeline didn't answer. Angeline Persopoulos, said Gary. I don't think I can combine those two names. But then he thought for a moment and said, Angelopoulos. Angeline laughed. She tried to think of one, too. It's too bad your name isn't Melvin, she finally said. Then you could be the moon. Gary laughed. Not only did she laugh at his jokes, but she also liked to play along. Do you know any more good jokes? She asked him. No one had ever asked him that before. He tried to think of his best joke, but for the first time in his life he couldn't think of one. His mind just went blank. The bell rang. He quickly took off his shoe, then put it back on. What did you do that for? Asked Angeline. Do what? Asked Gary. Take your shoe off and put it on again. Gary looked around in confusion, utterly bewildered. I don't know, he said. And that's the end of chapter 3.